How's it going, everybody? So I wanted to talk a little bit about a concept and a critique that is often put forward when people are trying to understand what it means to have free market principles. And a big thing that happens here is that people are often like, well, if you stop having government intervention and regulation in certain areas, or you say, hey, a certain government service should be demonopolized, or unfunded through taxation. What's going to happen? What's going to rise? And the whole point I think that people miss is that the free market as a concept is meant to allow ideas to rise. When someone says, "Hey, what's your solution?" that's a point for central planning, right? If one person could come up with all of the perfect ways for every single outcome on every single type of possible social service or product or good, then you'd have just made an argument for central planning. The point is that central planning does not work, and what has to happen is people have to be allowed to have the freedom to compete and for good ideas to rise and for bad ideas to fail or to be fleshed out or to be creatively destroyed. That is when people invent things that make something go out of service. It'd be as silly as saying, well, maybe back in the 70s or something like that, the government's like, you know what, we need to have everybody be able to hear our messages, and so everybody has to have 8-track, in the car. And you might be like, well, that could be good because then everybody has access to, being able to have quality sound, to hear things from, the government that they can like either, get a cartridge for or listen to in the radio if it was like a, bigger headset or something like that. But obviously, there are a lot more technologies that are much better, much more efficient, have much more capacity and diversity and utility and compactness than the 8-track. And the same thing goes for any other type of service, whether it's defense of any sort, judiciary, fire, police, you name it. And so the key here is not okay. What is your solution? If you can't come up with some solution, then you're wrong. No, the key here is that the idea of free marketism, of Austrian economics, and the ethics of liberty is that people acting in their own self-interest work to create better solutions than just one person could ever imagine. And even someone who's really brilliant and can develop an amazing team of people, even they could be creatively destroyed by somebody else or another group or team or different people who could make something that is better. And so in order to have that happen, you can't have that monopoly force, right? If somebody says, well, we're the only people that can provide this good or service, we're going to take monies from you by force, and you have to use our service, and we won't let anybody else, and we're going to threaten them with force. Well, now you just created a world where people cannot compete and come up with better ideas, or if they do, they're going to be shut down with violence. And so in order to bridge that gap, you have to say, okay, well, what if you just demonopolize, right, and allow markets to compete? If you do that, then you do allow, at least for the transition, you could say, okay, well, government can't fund itself here through threats of force and violence and taxation, and in order for them to show their worth, they're going to have transparency, they're going to have to fundraise, and they're going to have to say, hey, here's what we're doing with your money, you can't go into debt and things like that. And now you have the opportunity for people to experiment and say, okay, well, now that this is not monopolized, other people can come up with services that people could subscribe to or use that they think might be better, more effective, more efficient, deliver a better good of service. And if there's any criticism that can't be done in the market, well, then it's not like the government goes away. It just now has the opportunity for people to arise and start to develop competing goods and services. Even if it's as simple as the post office, right? In which you look at FedEx, you look at USPS, and clearly there were market competitors for large packages. It's not hard to see how that could happen for something that's just 13 ounces or less, with a letter. So that's really the key: is don't get caught up if you're someone who's trying to defend the principles of liberty and say like, oh, I have to have a solution for everything. No, you don't. That's not the point. The point is that central planning, no matter what you could say or suggest, will probably be crude or outmoded compared to what could happen with all the people in the world working and thinking about different things, at the market. And of course, it doesn't mean you can't come up with some possible suggestions. I do. I often will say, here are some possible ways that have already been even shown in the market that people are using right now as alternative methods for whatever good or service, monetization, justice, etc. But I always try to say it with a caveat, and that is that, I have these ideas and I have some possible suggestions of things that could work. But you know what? There's probably something better that's going to arise. There's going to be something that comes out that's even greater. Just like you look at, 8 tracks and then CDs and MP3 players and so on and so forth, there's going to be something that comes along that makes the old stuff that seemed really cool at the time and seemed really advanced like garbage. It's going to make it seem like garbage. And some things might stick around for other purposes, just like people are really enjoying records, vinyl right now because of the quality that's preserved. There might be some things that people liked as far as justice systems and certain types of criminal harms where the retributive factor is so high, they're like, okay, well, when it comes to murder or rape or something like that, we really want there to be an independent body. People don't want to do that through the private market. Okay, well, let's see if that happens. Let's see what happens by allowing that competition to arise, by allowing ideas to start to flourish instead of being forcibly shut down. So, that's a really big contention that people have, is they always want to hear, oh, well, then what's your solution to everything? It's like, no, I don't personally have a solution for every little thing. No more than if I said to a person, hey, can you tell me, you're using a phone right there, can you tell me all the physics and all the chemistry and, all the math that was used to make your phone? If you ask anybody and they say, yes, I can tell you every single thing on chemistry, math, and physics, they're probably lying. I mean, let's be real. No single person knows the chemistry, math, and physics of every single component to every single part that was put together in a phone. The technology of a modern phone is the product of millions of people across the world who have worked on various aspects, and people have learned from people in the past. I mean, it's not just this like one or two people who came together and said, oh yeah, I'm going to think through every single type, of component within this device. From the user interface to the plastics involved, silicon and microchipping and all the transistors, stuff like that. It's silly that one person has all the knowledge for every single thing within a phone, and yet here it is, a phone you can use and do a whole bunch of crazy things with. It's beyond just one person's thing, and that's the nature of the market. That's the nature of creativity and invention and innovation, is that it's not able to be done if you just try to have a central planner and just one person who says, okay, this is how everything's going to work in every single part of the economy and stuff like that. It doesn't work. You're stopping progress. So thanks a lot, everybody, and I'll talk